Friday. Our guest speaker today is Sherry Prindle, and she's going to talk to us about Prindle's Dozen. Take a crack at marketing success in this scrambled world. And boy, those of us in Texas are certainly can attest to scrambled. During today's information rich event, Sherry will share her 14-part marketing strategy she has used to help over 300 clients build a marketing strategy which will include a secret twist designed to help you stir things up and succeed in today's cold business climate. Sherry Prindle is an international event coordinator, innovative speaker, and corporate trainer who has delivered over 3,000 presentations in 50 states, 9 countries, and 3 languages. Wow. As an executive coach to small and solo business owners like us and marketing consultants, Sherry organizes the biannual Star Marketing Summit for trainers, speakers, coaches, and authors. She founded the Professional Coach Academy, where she has been instrumental in launching the careers of over 1,200 professional speakers and coaches. She has an MA in business and linguistics and speaks Japanese and Russian, having lived in both countries. She obviously enjoys traveling, camping, singing, trail running, and team trivia. Please welcome Sherry Prindle.
Oh, you unmuted me. Very good. Thank you. Good intro. Who wrote that? Right. So I am reposting the document. I am not one of those people that comes into a program like this and tries to kind of do a veiled sales pitch. If you know somebody who says, do you know anybody who can come to our company and do a training seminar or whatever? What I really like to do is my passion is that we should all be able to make money doing what we love and what we're good at instead of having to go all day long to some job that's completely disconnected with everything we care about, just to make a living and then only do the things that matter to us in the few precious hours that we have beyond the workplace. So to that end, I found that I had a natural talent for helping people kind of figure out, well, what should I do for a living? What kind of business can I have? And one of the ways that I did that is I kind of translated it into the fact that when I look at people and their businesses and they're hustling, they're coming to networking groups like this one. They have their social media up. They're doing some cold calling, right? They're they're doing everything that everybody says to do, but people don't even know we don't even understand, well, what is it that you sell? We actually do a little thing where we just say, what the hell do you sell, just to make a rhyme, and if I can't discern, if I can't figure out from just a super, super quick conversation what it is that you sell, these elevator pitches are great, but elevator pitches say, I help people do such and such. And it's like, okay, good for you, but what do you sell? You just told me that, right? So it becomes this chase for the ability to leverage pull marketing, right? Push marketing. And even when you come to these networking groups, you guys we're not like that, but you've been to these, right? Networking groups where everybody's just busy, kind of push. Hey, let's do a one-on-one. Hey, pass out my business card. And it's very push. If you have a really clear definition of what you do and who you are, then people can self-opt in. Like, for example, I heard, Dawn talk about, and I was just like, oh man, I was just looking for kind of a new logo. And I kind of got some issues with a couple of my websites. And he was very clear about what he did. So I self-identified, ooh, I might need that, right? I think that, who's the one that sells the air purifiers? Is he not here anymore?
Marv.
Mark?
Marv.
Okay.
Williams.
Yeah, so it was interesting because then when I see him posting, then it's some kind of thing about health, right? It says something about health, and that's fine, but I don't get it. Like, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't understand. What is that? What is that? But then when he gave his pitch, like his pitch, his introduction, he pulled this thing up. I got to see I got to see it. I got a picture. You said something about pet odors. I got a picture of over there where the cat box is, and there's actually an outlet over there. And I was like, ooh, that's pretty good, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if I know very clearly what it is that you do, then you don't have to do pushing. I opt myself in, and I know that all of us, because you've been to so many networking events, all of us probably feel like, I've got my branding down, I've got my positioning down, I know what I do. But I think there are so many mixed, weird messages out there about marketing, right? Like, you have to have a cute, clever name, and you have to do, in the end, what above and beyond all of those things, you have to have a clear sense of who you are and what you do. And you need to be able to convey a clear sense to other people of who you are and what you do. So first of all, let me just check in with everybody. Can you relate to the to going to networking events and having people, and it's also quizzical? You're like, okay, you clearly spend a lot of money and effort on the marketing, and I don't know what you do. I don't understand. And maybe you even schedule a one-on-one with them because you want to figure it out. And it's like, why do I have to go through 15 minutes of a one-on-one with you before I understand, right, what you do, right? Okay, so just wanted to see if you could relate to some of what I'm talking about. And I know that it's always easy to look at the fact that any kind of a presentation, there's going to be a little bit of, I already know this, but the things that you already know, it kind of becomes, okay, but are you doing it? And the big thing that I'm really wanting to do, and the reason I kind of even rebranded my talk, because my talk is usually the Prindle's dozen, because the baker's dozen is 13. I might as well give you one more and call it 14. So I even rebranded the talk now because the scrambled world that we are in. So I added to my 14 Ps, one question under each P that says, do you need to revisit your branding now? The world has changed. Your client base has changed. Their needs have changed. Do you maybe need to even revisit your branding? So let me just invite, I appreciate that you all know a lot and do a lot, but it may be fun to kind of revisit some of these. So I'll go over the checklist of the 14 Ps, the Prindle's dozen. I'll spotlight a couple of them and go into a little more depth with a couple of them. I'll have us do a little bit of an activity to kind of maybe analyze and interact about at least one of the areas. And then on each of the areas, we'll kind of take a look at how are you going to maybe flip your business a little bit to adapt to what's going on in the crazy scrambled world that we're in right now. And then I'd love to kind of end by asking you to pick one thing that maybe you will revisit, because a lot of times when we go back out there with the same message, then what good is it doing us? So the handout that I gave to you is completely open and transparent to you. It has all 14 Ps, and it has the questions that I invite you to ask yourself regarding the 14 Ps. So boom, you've got that. So what I'll do now is highlight a couple of the different 14 Ps and highlight a couple of the different 14 Ps and go into a little bit more depth with a few of them. So the first of the Ps, and I played around with the theme with the eggs, right? So it's kind of like, ooh, flip your business, scrambled world, yeah. And then the dozen, right? It was just too many cool opportunities to put in eggs. So then, of course, I sat down and wasted my time thinking, which kind of eggs would I correlate with each of the 14 Ps? Yes, that's how I spent my free time instead of going out doing something fun. So so if you kind of look before the P, there's going to be like a type of egg, and I'm not planning on explaining why I chose that type of egg for, in this abbreviated presentation. So there you go. But the first P really becomes purpose. And a lot of the time when I do a talk like this, because clearly going through all 14 Ps in depth takes, an hour and a half instead of just half an hour. So in this one, when I do go into depth with it, one of the things I actually have people do is actually look inside at the things that you've gone through. I sometimes like to say, find your purpose in your pain. think about, childhood traumatic experiences that still come back to haunt you. You still feel bad about that. Think about business failures and relationship failures that maybe you've had. Think about fears and frustrations that you've had, and recognize that a lot of the time, in order for people to really find a why and a purpose in what they do, you'll find that purpose in your pain. So I'm not doing that exercise with this group today, but I would invite that if you really, really look at a recurring theme in your life, a lot of time it really is that you have some kind of a painful experience that you're overcoming, and that maybe in your business, you want to help other people overcome. In fact, would anybody opt into that you kind of think that that's somewhat true of what you do in your business? Even now, I mean, I realized that I was an only child who, my even though I was an only child and I was really dynamic, my parents didn't pay a lot of attention to me, right? And I felt like I had to do everything on my own. I was very independent, which is awesome. But then it puts me in this place where I feel like it would have been nice to get some guidance and some help. So what did I become, right? I became a speaker and a trainer. Why? To offer people guidance and help, right? And I don't mean that that's a conscious process that you mentally go, oh, I'm going to do this because I had this problem. But if you actually research it, you may absolutely find something there. So think about not just what you offer, but why you offer it, like what purpose it provides. And in this post-pandemic, we're not quite there yet, almost post-pandemic time that we're in now, the last question at the bottom of each slide is the new question that I've added to have you kind of rethink and flip your business. So what is it that you were doing pre-pandemic that might need to be rethought through? So if you have an answer to this, I'd love to see it in the chat or out loud. But for example, pre-pandemic, I was getting on planes, flying to businesses and teaching training seminars. That's what I did every day. I was doing that. And now, I had to rethink it. And now not only am I I'm doing multiple platforms. I'm doing every platform: Zoom, WebEx, GoToWebinar, Teams. There's all these platforms. I've learned all of those platforms. And not only am I teaching my training programs via these platforms, but now I'm training other people on how to be more effective virtually. And I'm actually going into organizations, helping them to not going in yet, but having consultations with organizations, having them rethink their whole idea behind why does everybody have to come to work at the exact same time and make it so that 635 is a parking lot every morning? Why? Right? Why do we have to get out on 635 and I-35 at all? Why can't we do more flexible work and so beyond this? So I'm finding myself now to become kind of a work flexibility consultant, which never would have been a part of my skill set. So I changed processes from paper to electronic options. Absolutely. Anybody else have kind of an answer to that question? That maybe some changes that you have made, or if not, I really want that to be food for thought, changes you could make. Jennifer says, I had always envisioned meeting with potential clients and actual clients in person and possibly working at their location. But how necessary is it now, right? Now that we see we can get away with it. So just food for thought on that one. The second one is something that kind of in the introduction to my program I mentioned to you, which is what the hell do you sell piece. What do you sell? And then that old sizzle versus steak. I know that this phrasing, this conversation is not a new one. It's been around forever. And yet I really feel like sometimes people don't know what they really sell. So the fun example I think that most of you have heard is, if I buy a drill, I don't really want a drill. What do I want? Somebody in the chat, go ahead and answer that one so that we can kind of throw in the, so if I buy a drill, what do I don't want a drill. I want what? Exactly. I want a hole, right? In the end, I'm not standing there going, oh, a drill. What I really want is a drill. No, I'm standing there thinking, darn it, I need a hole, right? What is it that I need in order to get myself the kind of hole that I need? And then I buy a drill. So think about the fact that you may be selling the drill rather than the hole. So let's go back to I don't know if the example, and I think he did a good job with it. I'm not really seeking an air purifier. What I am seeking is cleaner air. I'm seeking air that smells better. I'm seeking a solution to the embarrassment of people coming into my home and smelling my pet odors. I'm seeking a solution to the fact that I can't even get to sleep at night sometimes because I'm distracted by a smell. So he sold that. He sold me on the idea that what I really want is I want relief from the embarrassment and discomfort of these odors in my home. And the way to get that is through this particular air freshener, this air purifier. So I want to make sure that everyone really gets a sense of that as well. And is anybody with me though, that this one, sometimes people take it like the other direction and they get weird about it? Like I know we've got the medical insurance person, right? And they go into like, you don't really need medical insurance. What you need is peace of mind. You need to now the knowledge that like sometimes people take the sizzle a little weird, and go way overboard with it. But it's important that we know what that sizzle is. So that if I'm selling a training seminar, like that's what mine is. And I didn't tell you, I didn't do my little pitch. So here's my question. If I'm selling corporate training seminars, I'm not really selling corporate training seminars. What am I actually selling? Let me see what you all say about that one.
Personal development.
Okay, so I love that you went there, because for me, I think sometimes we take it down one level. So I'm not selling training seminars, I'm selling personal development. Now I'm going to say I'm not selling personal development either. That's closer to what I'm actually selling.
Smooth running machine.
Smooth running machine. So I'm selling productivity. I'm selling a productive workforce, right? And then you might even go deeper than that. And the way that I recommend
happier employees.
Say it again.
Happier employees.
Happier employees. Okay, good. Any more?
You're selling you.
Selling me?
Yeah.
Yeah, on some level, that energy, that
how to do things. It's you that we are hiring because you have the wherewithal to help us accomplish our goals.
Very good. So on some level, and I'm actually going to have a thing later, Robert, I like what you just said, that I call pink spoons, because people want a little taste of you, right? And so a lot of the time they buy whatever it is that you are offering because they want a little piece of you. They want a little taste of you. They want to take you home with them. So there's absolutely a bit of that. My favorite way to get deeper, to go from training seminar to professional development to happy employees to productive work environment, is to ask the question, so what? We do a training seminar, so what? Well, if we do a training seminar, people will know what to do. Okay, so what? Now people know what to do. Oh, well, if people know what to do, then they'll be more content and they'll be able to, be less distracted. Okay, so what? They're more content, they're less distracted. Well, if they're more content and less distracted, then they'll be more productive. Okay, great, they're more productive. So what? Well, if they're more productive, then we're going to meet our targets. We're going to be able to stay in business. We're going to be able to change the world, all the things that we got into this business to do in the first place. So let me invite that. I know you have thought through the sizzle and the steak, but how deep have you taken it? Continue to take like, okay, I sell this, so what? Well, I sell this so that this, okay, now so what? And really take it down. Because as you go through this idea of especially selling through networking, then they do want to know, what the hell do you sell, right? But they also need to be able to opt into it, like, that's for me, right? And then the big pandemic question here on this one is, how have people's needs changed with regard to your product or service? So I know the commercial real estate guy, I think you were saying that there were some big changes that you had experienced in the commercial real estate field during 2020. Is that correct? I think he's still here.
Yeah, the small business guys are going out of business because they can't do business.
So now all of a sudden though, there's probably something on the other end of that. Like, I think it's really easy as a business owner to go in and say, oh my goodness, the small business people are going out of business, so I'm going to have a hard time selling the real estate. But let's say, and I know you I think it sounds like you broker real estate deals as opposed to owning real estate that you're trying to rent out empty spaces.
Yeah, I'm a
correct?
broker. Yes.
So if I'm the owner of the space, right, and I'm like, okay, all these businesses are going out of business, so I can't fill my strip mall, then maybe you need to look at, okay, what do we need? So for example, one thing that has thrived during the pandemic is that remote workspaces, to where I have to deliver these webinars, but I have no place to deliver them. So I need to rent a little daily office space to be able to go in and do that. So maybe somebody's storefront could become remote workspace for right now. We're finding that people are having a hard time because they don't, with various logistical things. So maybe again, something that may have been a storefront property becomes a warehousing property or a logistical office for something that people need. And maybe you have to say, I used to require a lease of at least, a number of years, a 1 year, a 2 year, a 5 year lease. Now I'm going to go ahead and allow short-term leasing, because what we're finding is that people have very specific needs for spaces, but they need the spaces to be repurposed, and they need the leasing arrangements to be repurposed. And now all of a sudden you're this thriving real estate broker because you advise the people that own the property that if you're willing to repurpose, and then you start marketing that. Think of all the ways that the pandemic has caused an increased need to have a commercial space. We all know the way that it's created a decreased need, but there are going to be on the other end ways that it has created an increased need. So just getting creative and looking in that particular area. All right, oops, stuff coming in the chat. All right, just checking. Okay, good, you're with me. So first of all, I had my purpose, then I had my promise. Now I'm going to make an omelet for the people. Who is your target audience? Do they actually need what you offer? I think a lot of the time I see in networking groups, I didn't see that here, but have you been to these networking groups where everybody seems to be having some kind of a like not really a need, just kind of a want, kind of a, hey, those little jam, what are those called, jam something nails, jamberry nails, right? Or they're selling, and those are fine, those are wants, those are things that work in kind of an opulent economy. But there are people that need those too. I mean, how is what you sell both a need and a want? Do they need it? Do they want it? Who's already meeting the needs of your audience? And then the big question is, where are they hanging out? And that's a big one, because where people hang out has changed with the pandemic, right? So we were hanging out both in the real world and the virtual world. Now we're not hanging out in the real world the same way anymore. So have you, as you target your audience, as you try to find people to match up with what you offer, are you looking in new places? Let me tell you about a new place I found, for example. I found a place where people like me hang out, coaches and trainers and educators and business professionals, and people that like, I have a coach certification. The type of person that takes my coach certification hangs out here. It's a phone app, and it's called Clubhouse, and it's only on iPhone, and it's audio only, and you have to be invited to go on Clubhouse. So all of a sudden I get on Clubhouse and people are having audio only, no pictures, no text. They're having deep conversations about meaningful topics that are of complete interest to me, and the people that are in there are all my target audience. And it's amazing. It's a new place people are hanging out, because we can't hang out in the places that we used to hang out. So let me just have you ask yourself, do you know where people are hanging out now virtually, if you used to rely on meeting people in person? And I'm finding that on some level, networking is a little easier in the virtual world, because it used to be that you had to travel to some other city, or you had to, set aside a particular amount of time, or pay a particular fee to be a part of things. So if anybody's got any kind of ways that you've noticed people are hanging out in a different place, they hang out at RPH. Absolutely. Okay. And then what new needs as you meet people, as you talk to new people, what are their needs? And then I'm sure that you've gone through something like this, but for this particular piece of your target audience, I'm curious as to who does this. There's a marketing concept called a persona. So this is where I would invite you to take a moment and even do a little bit of this. So first of all, I just want to ask, have you heard of this idea of a buyer persona? Who's heard of something like that? Nod or whatever. The one thing, I love Zoom, but I don't, it's so hard to raise your hand in Zoom.
Yeah, it's
Um,
actually the probably the most common term that we've heard in talks, really, Sherry, is the avatar. And
Okay.
you know, your client avatar, which is you know, depending on whose methodology incorporates these things. I like the chart that you've got up here, but yes, it's
Okay, good.
definitely something that at least folks that have been on these, we're not totally neophytes with regard to that concept.
Good. I didn't think so, because usually networking groups talk about them.
And Sherry, one of our members who
Please.
unfortunately is not here today, who sells marketing things, which she calls tchotchkes, she asks the question at the end of her pitch, what's your persona? She uses that word specifically because she's trying to match your persona. How do you want to be viewed by people in your audience with the kinds of things that you might leave behind as reminders?
So she uses persona differently. So a lot of times they'll do this. Buyer persona is kind of the longer phraseology. I have a friend, Stormy Andrews, who actually has this great book that he wrote called The World's Best Buyer Persona System. So buyer persona might make that clearer. So thank you for that clarification. Or avatar. Now, the thing about a persona or an avatar is good. You've had people talk to you about it, and I've kind of got a little mind map that I use to kind of brainstorm who the persona is. But do you know, once you've identified your buyer persona, what are you supposed to do with that? Okay, what is your persona? Is her tagline. Good, good. Like, I've got my persona, I've done it. And I mean, I think beyond, I guess I'm trying to say beyond what we already know, which is, oh, well, yeah, I'm supposed to identify my target audience. That's all you're saying, is that I'm supposed to identify my target audience. Actually, no, this idea of a buyer persona takes it one step deeper. Anybody?
Sherry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you do then is think like them, and what problems of theirs do you solve?
I'm going to, yes, I 100% agree. And I'm going to take it even one step further. Now, this is a much less detailed buyer persona than the one that I'm recommending that you actually have. It was just something I did for a presentation. But I'm going to say, give your persona a name. And then in addition to what Jeff just said, think of them every time you draft a message. So every time I write a Facebook post, every time I make an email blast, every time I kind of decide what my little 30-second commercial is going to be at a networking event, I think to myself, I imagine Shawnee, and I imagine that I'm talking to Shawnee, and I ask myself, what's Shawnee in the middle of right now? You know, what's Shawnee concerned about right now? Where's Shawnee hanging out right now? And if I were to tell Shawnee about this new thing I'm offering, how would I explain it to Shawnee? And just in a normal, natural way, the idea is that you keep a specific person in mind. If you've ever done anything on television, that's exactly what they tell you to do. They say, don't look at the camera, look through the camera. And imagine that there's exactly one person back there that you're speaking with. So thank you for, you saw me switch that, and I meant to pause the screen. So thank you for kind of exploring something you've already talked about, persona. But again, even if you have an avatar or a persona, I would invite you to rethink it a little bit post-COVID, that maybe there's a little difference there. One of the key P's that we talk about all the time in marketing is positioning, and what makes you unique, and how you can demonstrate your uniqueness. What I would invite on this one is just that last question: the current scrambled state of affairs in the world. Do you need to reposition your uniqueness? I told you I've been a corporate trainer for 22 years, But all of a sudden, when I was an early I was already doing webinars when webinars weren't cool, right? So I was one of the early adopters when all the training companies were saying, we need someone to teach webinars. I was like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. So I got in my foot in the door super quick. And then everybody was asking me, can you teach me how to do that? So guess what I started adding is I'm a virtual training expert. I'm a virtual meetings expert. I'm a virtual engagement expert. How awesome. I've got a whole brand new area of uniqueness. So anybody else kind of uncover in this time a new area of unique selling proposition? Anybody?
Yeah, actually, Sherry, one of the things is building this network group and other network groups, and also working with other folks in this environment, because we had to obviously learn how to do this, and also learning how to network in a face-to-face environment. Um, I'm starting to offer services to people on how to expand their reach to get into a virtual environment, even beyond just using Zoom, but how can you start doing what you're used to doing in a face-to-face, in the room networking, to expand that beyond that. And I don't mean just, going to LinkedIn and those kinds of things, but really looking at other technologies and ways to do that. So yeah, it's definitely fertile ground.
Well, and even the healthcare industry, they're going to, all these online medical doctor and online nursing offerings, the face of so many things is changing. So let's make sure that we're staying in touch with that. The next three all go together: pain, pleasure, process. If you've ever watched a commercial, right, it's always, do you suffer from pain? What if you could? Pleasure. Here's how. Process. And I know that we know that in our sleep, but I do want to take a moment, as we talked before about your product and the sizzle versus the steak. Pain often is not really painful. I mean, I have people like, let's go with the fingernail things, and they say, do you get frustrated waiting for your fingernails to dry? And I'm like, well, maybe, but that's not really painful. It's not a huge pain, right? But I travel for a living. I don't do my nails, but I travel for a living. And if you do your nails, sometimes right middle of the week, they already need to be redone again. And you have a real limit on the number of liquids you're allowed to bring on the airplane with you. So if she were to say, do you find that, you do your nails and they're already not looking good the next day, and you really want to be able to fix them quickly, that would be a little more painful. But one of the things that people use as pain is not really painful. So let's use the same so what technique. So what are people struggling from? Oh, they're paying too much for medical insurance. Okay, so what? Well, if they're paying too much for medical insurance, then this is taking a big cut out of some of their goals and dreams, like family vacations and things. Okay, so what? Well, then at the end of their life, they look back and they're like, my gosh, I feel like I just worked and worked and worked, and all I got out of it was just some insurance that I maybe didn't have to use. Like, you just keep asking, so what, to deepen the pain. And then my big question here, of course, is, has the pain changed? Has the pain that your target audience is experiencing changed? So we know in real estate it has changed. We know in networking it has definitely changed. As you think about your business, do they, in some places, obviously they have increased pain, but it's not pain that's associated with what you offer. But is there some way that what you do offer can somehow meet them in the pain? Like, I find that organizations, they'll bring in me as a trainer, not because they need training, but because people feel disengaged and their employees are all working from home and they don't feel connected. And they found that they tried to do like daily meetings and everybody was rolling their eyes because they're like, oh boy, another daily meeting. We got nothing to talk about at these daily meetings. So they're complaining on one end that I'm disconnected with my group, but on the other end, these like lame daily meetings that didn't have any kind of a purpose were not working. So now all of a sudden they're bringing me in to do a training seminar, not so much because they need training, but because they just need an engaged workforce that has an opportunity to meet with one another and have social interaction. So now my seminars have to change because they can't be this big, long, like lecture type thing, right? Because then the social interaction isn't happening, right? So that's a big thing. So I'm realizing now my training seminars are less about training and more about getting people engaged. So the pain has changed, and therefore my solution to the pain has to change as well. So think about your solution to their pain and how you really, really need to really change it. So the pleasure question is kind of the similar thing. What can people expect to be different after having worked with you? How great will it feel? So what, deepen that pleasure. And then again, how has the definition of pleasure changed? So I will tell you, I think in a lot of fields, people have lower expectations. Does anybody feel like in your particular industry that people have a little bit lower expectations than they did before the pandemic? Some of you are nodding your head. That may or may not be true. But you might be able to leverage that. I found that people have lower expectations for training because they expect that if the training is virtual, it's going to be really boring and it's not going to be very engaging. So when I come in and it is engaging, then they're pleasantly surprised, right? Good question. Can pleasure simply be the removal of pain? I think it's important to take that extra step and say, what does the removal of pain feel like? So let's say that my back hurts, right? And I go to the chiropractor and they correct me and my back doesn't hurt anymore. So now you say, look, come to the chiropractor and your back won't hurt anymore. And that's pleasure and it's motivating. But if you do one step further and define what does the pleasure look like, right? So now imagine that you can go back to that same mobility. Not only does your back not hurt anymore, but you're able to stand up and turn around and play with your grandkids and go on those trail runs, which is my thing. That's even better. So I do think it's worth the time to recognize that removing the pain is the first step, but then what's that state? If you look at motivational, there's an old idea called the motivated sequence that says you get their attention, then you establish the need. That's what we're doing here, right? With the pain and pleasure. And then the next one is you satisfy the need with the process. But then the next step is visualization. So they giving them that vision of how things will be better after we overcome the pain, get the pleasure, and go through the process. I think that piece is a huge part of what motivates people. Bowling again. Yes, everyone kind of fill in the blank with your favorite thing. Exactly. So how has the definition of pleasure changed? And I do, but like to go back to what you did say, Randolph, is I do think for a lot of people, because their standards have been lowered, the absence of pain is pleasure right now. Like, at least I don't have COVID, or at least I do have some people that I can hang out with, or at least, right? And then there's the process. And the process, the main thing I want to say about the process is too many marketers are really big on saying, here's what I do, here's what I offer. And they're talking about their process. Well, guess what? I don't care about your process until you show me why it applies to me. So until I know what is the pain, the problem that I'm experiencing that you have a solution for, and how will things be better? So people are so big on here's my process. And I'm like, nobody cares about your process until you attach it to the pain and the pleasure. So the key is pain, pleasure, and then process, not the other way around, right? Too many websites are all about the process, too many networking speeches. So something that's my favorite little way that I like to position this out is pink spoons. So tell me, what business gives out pink spoons real quick? Pink spoons? Baskin Robbins, right? So you go in, and I just want to point out that in the food and beverage industry, everything's about profit and loss, P&L. So those pink spoons and the free ice cream they give out with them cost Baskin Robbins money. So there must be an ROI. So what is the return on investment? Why is Baskin Robbins so quick to give out as many little pink spoon samples as you want, and even let you walk on out the door having never bought any ice cream if that's what you prefer to do? And if you want to go with Krispy Kreme donuts and the free hot donut, those types of things. Why do they do that? There's a cost associated with that. What's the ROI that makes it worthwhile for them to do that? And as we look at the ROI, so the hook, right? So the idea is that now I tasted it and I really want it, maybe, right? Or maybe I was going to get one scoop, but now I'm going to get two because I like two different ones. Or maybe I like several of them, so I was only going to come today, but maybe I'll come again in a couple of weeks because I liked that ice cream. maybe I'll even take some home with me in a gallon or whatever. But there's also this sense of what's called reciprocity. And Baskin Robbins isn't the only ice cream seller out there. And so reciprocity is a human condition that says, I don't want to owe you anything. I don't want to feel indebted to you. So if you've done something for me, I feel the need to repay you. That's why speakers like me come to networking events like yours, is, hey, if I put myself out there, then someday if you see a need for a speaker, you might refer somebody to me because if you got value, right? So that's really, in the end, as we think about our small business owners, is how am I going out there giving people pink spoons? How am I going out there giving people free, something that was valuable to them for free, so that now when they do need what, and they might not buy right away, but when they do need what I have, they'll feel indebted to me. And that law of reciprocity will get them wanting to jump in and help. Now, I know that we've got like 5 minutes left. I want to acknowledge that I know that, and that I'm absolutely not having any problem being on time, because these last few P's are a little more just like technical stuff that I wasn't, necessarily going to go through. The main thing I really wanted was the pink spoons, because to me, when you think about content marketing, you give out great content, people consume your white paper, right? They watch your video, and they gain value. So are you actively putting out pink spoons? Are you doing talks like this? Are you going to networking groups and referring things to people so that they want to refer back to you, right? And you may not think that you have anything interesting to offer, but everything that you all talked about, if you had a little YouTube video, like a little how-to video, that kind of told me about, what it was that, as a little how to, told me about what it was that you offered and how it affects me, and some little anecdotal stuff about it, I'd probably be interested. So as we look at the rest of the P's, there's your value proposition, there's your pricing, there is the pivot from talking about what you offer to actually offering it. There's the promise or guarantee. Then I want to finish with my last P, and the last P is possibility. I have a vision that before all of this craziness started, things were not perfect, that there were issues with our processes and our world. And we've had to really switch around. And at first, I think there was this anticipation that after it was over, we would go back to the way things are. But I think we're beyond that now. Do we really want to go back to the way things are? Or since we're having to make so many changes anyway, what if we fix some of the things that weren't so great about the way things were? And actually look at what you were doing, what your industry was doing, what your marketing was doing, and actually say, what is at least one thing that wasn't working in the old way anyway that I'm willing to completely flip on edge and turn into something brand new that was better than before? So thank you all so much for having me. A lot of fun. Appreciate all the interaction.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. That was very information rich and very inspiring. Thank you very much for sharing. Let's give her a hand, and then we have a little bit of time for questions here. She did an excellent job. Thank you for managing the clock. You did a awesome. It's one of the things is in this Zoom environment, sometimes it's almost as hard as doing it in person, right? Because you have to be disciplined because you get excited, right? And there was definitely no lack of excitement from Sherry. So I'll give a couple minutes here for questions, and then also just for those that know the drill, we will open up the mic as long as Sherry can hang around after 1 o'clock. If you have any other thing that you feel like you didn't get out, we'll have that opportunity as well. So anyway, let me see. Ricky, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I was going just to say that what I'm taking away from this is that I didn't realize that there could actually be an expert like yourself who could help people navigate through these changes that we're all going through, and ones we're going to keep, ones we're not going to keep. And I thought that, that was just going to be something where everybody would just have to figure out on their own. But it almost is like that's a whole new thing for you, is to help everybody navigate through these changes, so that's kind of the most important thing on the agenda, I think.
Thank you. And that you don't have to go it alone. In fact, I just worked with a nonprofit agency called Lift Fund. And we actually took like small businesses that were failing and they assigned them to consultants like me. And we worked one-on-one. I got 6 different clients that I helped. It was just a nonprofit. So not only are for-profit people doing it, there are even not-for-profit efforts in that direction. Thank you.
Randy, did you have something?
Yeah, first of all, it was a great presentation, Sherry. And you did the one thing that I was taught in giving a presentation is you ended it so abruptly. You left me wanting more. And I think that's a good thing because I would love to, find out how I can find out more about the things that you teach and other talks that you may have available. So I know you've downloaded some things which are on the chat. So I remind everybody to save the chat.
Right. Also, on regarding the saving the chat, while the chat is live here, just give you a user tip. Those links that are there or documents that are there are downloadable or executable while you're in the chat. So you should, if there's live links, you can click on the live link. If there's a PDF or a Word document there, if you open those, they will open up on your computer. And even if you don't deal with them right now, if you open them up, then when the Zoom is over with, you'll have those links, those documents. I think Jeff posted a link. I posted a link to our Facebook group. Sherry posted her 14 items worksheet. We posted it. She posted it in Word form, and I posted it as a PDF just to make sure that if somebody didn't have Word, that they would be able to open it. So again, just as a little educational tip for using the technology that we have. So download the chat and use the chat, and appreciate everybody doing that. I'll give one more question if anybody has a question or a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to segue to our next week. Any other? Okay. Well, seeing none, let me again thank you again, Sherry. Let's give her another hand. I can't. I got to say, I always say to the group, we all share our most valuable asset when we get together, and that is our time. And I always and never want to end a networking meeting without telling everybody here how much I appreciate and how grateful I am that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset in me and in this group. So, and don't take that lightly. The other thing I want to say is that taking what Sherry has shared with us, I don't want to speak for her, but as a speaker, as a teacher, as a parent, the most rewarding thing in return on our investment or Sherry's investment in us is for us to take what she shared with us and put it into action. Put it into action in a way that impacts our lives and our business. So I hope Sherry would agree with that. That's when we do this, that's the impact we're hoping to have. And so again, I thoroughly appreciate her contribution to this group. I thoroughly appreciate each and every one of you for sharing it at this time. And hopefully this has been impactful to you. This coming a week from today, we'll have Elena Hill, and she'll be talking to us. And I would encourage you to go to the calendar. She's another great resource, and you'll hear some other things, actually some things on vision and life purpose and those kinds of things. So, and she's a project manager by trade, so she's got an engineering focus, which is really should be fascinating to me because you know me, I'm the vision warrior, but I'm also very, very interested in hearing other people's perspective on taking vision and making it reality. And so anyway, I'm excited to have her share with us next week as well. So Sherry, thank you very much. It's 1 o'clock. If for those that are tired of being cooped up and you're willing to get out in the world and hear some music, on Monday we will have our cheers group. It should be almost 60 degrees here in Dallas, so we'll hopefully the snow will be gone and we'll get to hear Ricky Jean Wright and have some social interaction for those that are willing to do that. And with that, I'm opening up the mics, or you can open up your mics. I'll put it on grid view. And again, thank you, Sherry. And thank you each and every one for being here. The meeting is officially adjourned. And again, thanks.
Thank you.
Great job, Sherry.
Thank you.
Great. Sherry, I have a comment. One of my son's girlfriends is an 8th grade teacher. And what you just went through is their biggest frustration with non-in-person learning these days. And I wonder how receptive the school districts are to what you're saying, or have you proposed to help them fix that problem?
You know what? Just thank you so much, because this is a leads group, a referral group. I have done so many trainings for school districts, and I haven't actively reached out to school districts with this particular concept of I can help you create engagement, or veiling a class assignment sharing as an engagement. So thank you. Yes, that's a great idea. No, but yes, I will now.
What about churches?
Good point.
Because they've gone through a lot of changes, and and a lot of them are struggling to figure out how we go forward. And
Absolutely, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've worked part-time at JCPenney for 20 years, and one of the things that the retail industry is fighting, as you know, is just getting customers in the door and keeping them coming back. I mean, it's a huge problem, and they haven't figured out how to change, and they're not adopting very well. In fact, they're not adopting at all to the pandemic or anything related to it.
Well, more and more of them are using, I'm saying more and more, of course, are using online. I mean, I'm getting stuff from JCPenney and Sears and places where I've shopped before, and they have my contact info. They're sending me specials and, special 20% online ordering discount, things like. So I think they've got the message, but I don't think they've got the solution.
The execution is millions of dollars to implement. Right. And that's part of the problem Penny's is struggling with, because of the bankruptcy and lack of funds. And so,
too late, too little, too late.
Well, and they're not the only one. It's not,
Well, Gordie Howe used to say that it was skating to where the puck is going is really the key to success. And so we all, at this juncture, understand what a pandemic feels like. It was a no-brainer for us to do Wednesday only online, because we now know how to do that through the pandemic. So as we talked about on Wednesday, the blessing of the challenge is we learn how to do it. The question is, as we emerge from the pandemic or from Snowmageddon here in Dallas or whatever, the question really is, what does the transition look like? And the new environment won't be the pandemic, and it won't be what was before the pandemic. So as we look at opportunity and possibilities, the key is, let's think about what that new world looks like. And when you talk about education, and by the way, those of you who know me know that I ran a Christian school and was part of that. And I'm very passionate about education. And it's just like these meetings, thinking that, okay, at some point I'm just going to be able to do online, or I'm going to just be able to do in person, is a possibility, but what if the possibility is hybrid? What if the
Right.
what if the transition never goes away?
Right.
That's the thing we've had to come to grips with at Richardson Plano, right? We do Wednesdays hybrid, we do Fridays only on Zoom. But what does that look like going forward? And once
Right.
things start to settle. So, and I don't know the answer. I'm not suggesting that I know the answer, but those are just like Sherry's 14 questions or the questions that go with these 14 points. Those are worthwhile questions to think about, and think about what we do, and think about our avatar, think about who we serve, and think about what they may be struggling with as we go through this. So it's a beautiful thing if you really want to believe in possibilities and believe in your own ability to make those possibilities a reality for the world around you. So I'm excited. I mean, you know, with big change comes big opportunity. If we're there, right, Sherry?
Well, yeah, and one big thing here with hybrid, back in the think about this before pandemic, if you were doing an event and you wanted to offer like a video version, you had to hire like because this wasn't acceptable, right?
Right.
You had to hire a cameraman, like a 2 or 3 camera shoot, and you had to get professional video editing. And now all of a sudden, our standards have lowered, and now you can call it hybrid when you simply have the event. You have a webcam over here, and people are standing in front of it, and somebody's in front of a Zoom thing moderating, right? Well, heck, if you can do hybrid like that, bring it on. Let's hybrid everything.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And
that's
David,
good.
you know, just a shameless plug for RPH, you know, in a sense, but
Well, it's
I take notes.
RPN, Randy. Quit saying RPN.
RPN. I always do that. RPN. The N stands for network. I take notes at every single one of these. And even though I'm, quote, retired, I'm not dead. And I pass a lot of this along to my kids because there are little snippets of every single week that they can use, that other people can use, Don, that educators can use. And we have to stay involved in our communities. And it's up to us to pass this information along.
Yeah.
That's our job as elders.
Well, for the elders in the room, I guess we're mostly
Right.
elders.
You and me, David.
Yeah, for me and Ricky and you, and you know, I guess Mark qualifies as an elder
me.
too. And Don, yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
we're not labeling anybody here, but
Yeah, right.
like Angel and Sherry, they don't count. So
Nah, they're not elders.
There you
They're
go.
not elders.
they're not old enough yet.
That's right.
Oh, any other thoughts for Sherry? Sherry, that you've been very provocative, and Randy doesn't like it when I use that term, but you've provoked me to think about some things in a different way, and I always appreciate that. Networking is a learning experience to me because I always like hearing others people's angle on the beach ball, as I say, and
That's right.
You see it as blue, I see it as red. We're both looking at the same ball. So
And Sherry, I also have to commend you on you've set a new standard. You're the first person to give their presentation from under their bed. That's
Wow.
great.
I
Talk
missed
about
that part.
innovation and creativity.
So you are under your bed? I missed that part.
Yeah, I asked her if she was in an office that was under construction. She said, no, it's my bed.
Awesome.
Now, she's not crawling on the floor, but that's how she's got it set up. It's great.
That's a ladder now that you see.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's pretty
Awesome.
fascinating.
So she's the first person that we've done these things, Dave, that she sold the idea of looking through the camera right to the person. When she did that,
Yep.
that was the first person that's ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
She
Right.
was very, very good at that.
Absolutely. And you practiced it. You didn't just preach it.
That's right.
Yeah, here comes David. He's going to get in.
Well, you see me do that. There's two reasons I do that. One is I use the proximity on my microphone so that if I sit back too far, it starts to clip. And then the other one is because it forces me to kind of
Gets wonky.
Yeah, it's wonky if I go back.
Stay engaged. We still got a good crowd here. That's great. Sherry, that's I can't say attestation to your value and your style and your content and all that stuff. So hope you can come back.
I can't wait. I can't wait to tell people that we had a presentation from under the bed.
Under the bed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to use that in my positioning now, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, it's got to be the title of your next book, you know?
Yeah.
Under the bed.